Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It is Thursday, so it's time for another market update where we take a look how things have changed week over week in the trucking industry. So today we're going to be again looking at general volumes, rejections, spot market volumes, and spot rates. We will look at diesel prices, we'll take a look at capacity, we'll dive a little bit deeper into capacity and what the numbers mean this week, and then we'll take a look at specifics for dry vans, reefers, and flatbeds on the spot market. And at the end of the video, I'm going to share my experience with you guys. Ready? Let's go. As always, all the charts will be attached right here. So let's go ahead and go through them. So number one, general overview, and we are looking at how volumes and rejections and spot market rates have changed week over week. So something to remember, general volumes and rejections are comparing this week to last week, whereas the spot volume and rates are comparing last week to the week before. So general volume week over week has gone down by 15.58%. And this is because of the fact that last week was Independence Day. So of course, volume always drops during that week. Rejections actually decreased also by 10.26% and are currently at 6.82%. Now, spot volumes, again, we're comparing last week to the week before. Spot volumes decreased by 28.62%, so less loads on the market. And in terms of the spot rates, those actually saw an increase of about 5 cents per mile if we're considering all equipment types. Now time to look at what's going on with diesel prices. So first we'll look at the map to see where diesel prices at the pump are cheaper. And the cheapest are Texas, Oklahoma, and Mississippi, with the most expensive being California at $5 and about 17 cents per gallon on average. Now I always get a comment from somebody saying that, well, that's not true, that is not correct, because I managed to refuel for $3 per gallon in California. I understand, and this can happen. We are just looking at the state averages. And if we take a look at the state averages, that means that the West Coast as well as the Northeast are the most expensive at the pump. Now, if we take a look at raw diesel prices, where we remove IFTA taxes from those prices, then we see that nothing changes. It's still the West Coast and the Northeast that are the most expensive, Oregon being the most expensive of all because it actually has zero IFTA tax. The least expensive is Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Colorado, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Illinois. All right, now speaking of diesel prices, let's take a look at the general overview, what's going on week over week. Well, as of today, the diesel prices on a national level are $3 and about 70 cents per gallon. This is an increase by about 1.3 cents since last week. It's an increase by 21 cents month over month, but it's still a decrease year over year by 16 cents per gallon. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at capacity, or more specifically, how many MCs are coming in versus going out of the market. So as you can see, the white line is at 0, which would mean that the same amount of people are leaving or closing down their MCs as opening up their MCs, resulting in a net 0. But in this case, we can see that the number of MCs increased by about 58 carriers. Now, I was wondering what could the reason for this be? And something that I have realized is a lot of people have been emailing me recently saying that they have been working for a carrier under a lease purchase program usually, and they're looking to get away from that carrier and open up their own MC, which could serve as an explanation of why there is an increase in the number of MCs, but that increase does not mean there is an increase in dispatchable trucks, which results in overcapacity, right? The amount of dispatchable trucks and the amount of MCs, they're not quite one and the same. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at specifics on the spot market, starting with dry vans. And something that I want to remind you is that this is for the week ending on July 4th. So we are comparing again last week to the week before. So, week over week, dry vans saw an insane increase of 21 cents per mile, which is normal because during the holidays, usually rates do tend to increase, capacity momentarily leaves the market. Rates year over year are 6% higher. The same cannot be said for volumes, though. Volumes week over week dropped by 24% almost on the spot market, and we're actually 40% lower year over year. Now, the drop of about 24% week over week is not scary by itself because, again, during a holiday week, volumes do tend to drop. What is a little bit concerning is that volumes year over year are 40% lower. Let's take a look at what's going on with loads. I make these maps using truck stop data. So this map shows you where the loads come out of for dry vans on the spot market. The darker it is, the more loads in that state. Texas by far has the most loads, followed by California and some of the Midwest. If you take a step back from the map, you'll see that most of the loads for dry vans, if you split the United States in the middle, you'll see that they come from the eastern side of the United States, not so much on the West Coast or the North, except for California, which is an outlier. So what about load to truck ratios? Anything a shade of red is overcapacity, meaning there are more trucks than there are loads. It's just the darker it is, like Nebraska, for example, has 0 to 0.2 loads per truck. Nice partial over there. Something interesting is that everything else is yellow, right? It's either a shade of red or yellow. Yellow is equilibrium, more or less, 1 to 2 loads per truck. There is nothing green on this map. There is no undercapacity anywhere at this point. All right, let's take a look at what's going on with reefers. Reefers also week over week saw a nice increase, right? And again, we're comparing last week to the week before. They saw an increase by about 20 cents per mile holiday week. It's normal. Rates were 8% higher than this time last year. Volumes week over week dropped by about 14.5%. Again, also normal holiday week. And what's nice here is that year over year volumes are actually 24% higher. So it's not like with the dry van where the year over year volumes dropped by 40%. Here, the year over year volumes are showing an increase. It's just that during last week, the volumes dropped because of the holidays. All right, let's take a look at where those loads come out of. And I feel like this map is all over the place. Again, these are loads on the spot market. Most of them come out of California, Texas, and New Jersey, followed by Pennsylvania and Illinois. Let's take a look at the load to truck ratio for reefers. And here it looks more like a normal map that I'm used to. So there are places that have overcapacity, right? Anything a shade of red. Yellow is equilibrium, but we also have Kansas and Arkansas that have 2 to 3 loads per truck. Then we have Idaho that has about 5 loads per truck, almost. We have North Dakota that has almost 6 loads per truck. And then Delaware has 6.3 loads per truck. Delaware is the best in terms of the raw load to truck ratio. That doesn't mean that you need to go to Delaware, because if you look at that map closely, you can see that Delaware is a tiny little state surrounded by overcapacity. People are going to be deadheading from Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, sometimes Connecticut, New York, to Delaware and diluting the situation. The way this measures load to truck ratio is not my favorite way, but this is the only way we have. And that just measures how many trucks are posted in Delaware versus how many loads are posted in Delaware, right? So be careful. All right, let's take a look at flatbeds. Not as fun as for dry vans and reefers. Flatbed saw actually less than half a cent increase. The reason I put 1 cent is because the week before, they also saw about half a cent increase. So yeah, flatbeds didn't really see much improvement over the holiday week. Now, year over year, rates are 3% higher. But volumes, man, the volumes, 34% lower week over week, which, okay, this is normal holiday week, right? But year over year, 13% lower, which means, yeah, there is a problem with the volume with flatbeds right now. What's going on with those loads? And clear as day, the loads mostly originate in the south, in the southern states. Just cut the map in half and you will see that the darker areas are in the south. Now, what about load to truck ratios? It's actually always very funny to me that if you cut the map kind of in half, northern and southern parts, you will see that the northern parts are over capacity regardless of region, whereas the southern parts are a little bit more manageable. Now, Oregon is one of those places that has 2 to 3 loads per truck. However, those loads usually go to places like Idaho, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, places you don't want to end up with any open deck trailer. So Oregon doesn't count, neither does Washington. California is very much the same, especially Southern California. You can get a really good rate going to somewhere like Nevada, for example, but going somewhere to Texas, Arkansas, yeah, it's either going to be a really crap rate or there's not going to be a load going there. Now, the places that I can confirm are really, really good for flatbeds: Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama. Arkansas is once again one of my favorite places to end up in with a flatbed. We just rented a step deck too, so I'm curious to see how that works. But yeah, Arkansas is definitely fun, but the biggest load to truck ratio is Mississippi, 9.54 loads per truck. All right, so in terms of data versus experience, honestly, I don't have much to share about the market because the market kind of was slow in preparation for Independence Day on July 4th, but we had a different experience last week. We were faced with an accident, the first one in the history of our company, not our fault. We were faced with predatory towing. So I learned a lot last week. It's been an interesting experience that I will for sure share in detail on this channel at a later date. But yeah, that was pretty much our experience. And honestly, I can't wait to share it with you guys because the person at fault, I mean, yeah, it's insane. It's an insane story to the point where my insurance agent said that he has never heard of something like this happening. So I can't wait to share it with you guys. But I'm very curious to hear how your experience last week was. Did you take a break for July 4th? Did you haul through the weekend? How was the load booking going? And especially I'm curious to hear from dry van and reefer operators, did you notice an increase in rates last week? Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining and watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week and weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. See you in the next video.